Welcome back, everybody, on a Monday morning edition of Hot Mic. Jeff Kolpak will join us about a half hour. We do it each and every Monday at this time slot. Talk to our guy, Sam Herder from Hero Sports, BetMGM, to unpack the weekend that was in FCS football. Of course, look ahead as we've got two dynamite games ready for some national television coming up on Friday and on Saturday. So here we are. We're halfway through it. We were just visiting off air that the game Saturday in Terre Haute, all I'm thinking of is what happened with Davis and Mercer, because I had people asking me, well, okay, what happens if they can't play? Is it a full game? Is it a no contest? All I'm thinking is what we talked about to start. The Davis-Mercer game was further along. That game was in the middle of the fourth quarter when they stopped that and didn't restart it, and it went down as a no contest. All I can think of is, okay, if this game doesn't resume, how that's going to affect the playoffs going forward.
Yeah, I was talking to some people about that if that game got called off, and that would have been one less D1 win for NDSU. And even if the Bison went 11-0, probably wouldn't have mattered. But like you were saying off air, like you don't want to put yourself in that scenario of having a game get called off. And SFA and Tennessee Tech were also in this situation where they had a long weather delays, and both of those teams are ranked and they have a non-D1 win as well. So that could have been, doubly worse. And it was kind of funny. SFA's head coach, he took a video of the stands after they resumed play, which was after midnight. And SFA's coach took a shot at Sam Houston and said, even after our weather delay, we still have more fans than you guys, just because that's a rivalry for those two. That was kind of a funny tweet from him.
All I'm thinking of is what happened last year. South Dakota's game with Portland State got banged there because of whooping cough or whatever it was, and they couldn't play the football game. And I know that cost USD, much like South Dakota State playing a non-D1 cost them. That just the wheels are turning in my head. Like this, if this game doesn't happen, what shakes out down the road if the Bison are 11-0, Tarleton's 12-0? Do they leap? Something crazy like that could have happened.
Yeah, it probably is something like that could happen with UC Davis or Mercer.
Yep.
Having that game canceled, and then your number of I think strength of schedule and ranked wins and wins over teams in the playoff discussion, those are all probably the most important. But yeah, number of D1 wins does come into play, and so Montana, Tennessee Tech, SFA, Southern Illinois, I believe those are the four teams off the top of my head that all have non-D1 wins, and those potentially could come back to bite them if their resumes are on par with someone else's, but that other team has one more D1 win. That could be the difference between kind of where you're situated.
All right, let's give some love here, because I don't know if we've done it enough on this program. University of North Dakota is rolling here, Sam. They go into Carbondale. They get up 28 rip in that game. That Sawyer Seidel was great. They dominated. They're sitting now literally 3 or 4 plays away. They should be 6-0. I know they're not, but they could very well be at this moment. They're in prime position, knowing full well they have NDSU and SDSU coming to the Alaris at the end of the season.
Yeah, they've been in my top 10 for a handful of weeks now, even though when they were in my top 10, they didn't necessarily have any great wins. It was more of just, the eye test, and, should have beaten Montana, should have beaten Kansas State, but those are still losses. But now with back-to-back ranked wins over Youngstown State, which was rather decisive, and then Southern Illinois on the road, again, even more decisive than the 20-point victory or whatever it was, because it was 28-0 at halftime. And so, they're rolling right now. They have a good-looking resume, 5-2 overall, 5-1 versus the FCS with those 2 ranked wins I just mentioned, and they're playing much better defensively than what I anticipated, and I was really high on their offensive line coming into this year and their running back room, which have both played really, really well. Gavin Zebarth did go down with a shoulder injury, I believe, so we'll see what his status is there. He's a really good back for them, but with the passing attack as well, so they're playing really complimentary football, and they were just running it down SIU's throats, and they probably could have passed the ball 5 times and still won that game. And so that was we talked about it. If they go to SIU and they get that win, that's when I think other people, not just us, but other people look at UND and be like, okay, this is for sure a top 10 team.
I bumped them up. Actually, I did. I know Montana State didn't play, and frankly, a bye shouldn't hurt you. But I moved them up to 5. I had them at or 4. I mean, they were at 6 in my poll. I moved them up a couple spots. What they did, how they did it, that's worthy of at least in my mind, that was worthy of moving them up.
Yeah, I kept UND at 6. I've had them there for a week or 2 weeks now. It was like Tarleton State blew out West
They
Georgia.
did.
And Tarleton State is getting healthy. They got their standout quarterback back. They got Cassius Kearns, standout defensive back. He's back. Trey Page, who's probably a top 3 candidate for the Walter Payton Award, really good running back for Tarleton. He also came back, and they dismantled West Georgia, who was ranked in the coaches poll. So like, I don't know if I could really drop Tarleton State back. Montana State's, I really like how Montana State is playing. I
Yep.
know they had a bye, but these last few games they've looked really good. Can't bump UND ahead of Montana because of the
Yeah.
head-to-head. So you're not going to jump them over NDSU or SDSU just yet. So yeah, I kept them at 6, but it's a good-looking top 6 right now in
Yeah,
the
right, yeah,
FCS.
I'd say right there, and knowing full well, I mean, we're all looking ahead to this weekend's game, but that game both those games in November could have way more impact than this one does, which I never would have thought that.
Yeah, I mean, especially with it being at the Alara Center,
Yes.
and I think we can put to bed like UND is a totally different team at home than on the road because we've seen them play super well on the road.
Yep.
But you still look at them at the Alara Center and how loud that place can get and how great of a home field advantage it can get, especially when you have a rivalry come to town. And so yeah, those are two huge games for UND. They get them at home. I could definitely see them splitting those games. I don't know who's going to get the win, who's going to get the loss as far as North Dakota State, South Dakota State, but I mean that's going to be really tough to go to UND and get wins there. So those should be two really really good games later on this
All right,
year.
let's talk Tarleton here because that was the big uproar. I know from the Montanas, at least from the Montana fan bases, both of them, that they were not thrilled that Tarleton was ranked ahead of them in the FCS playoff rankings. They clearly the committee valued the FBS win over Army, Sam. But you mentioned it; they're getting healthy. They got to. Who's going to beat them in that league? They're going to run the table. I think they're going to be 12-0.
Yeah, that's probably most likely. They will be 12-0. The UAC is super
It
competitive
is.
and road trips to Eastern Kentucky, road trip to Abilene Christian, who's ranked. Then they host Austin P, who's ranked right now. And so like there's still some challenges ahead, a couple of ranked opponents. But yeah, with how they're playing right now and how they rolled West Georgia had their starting quarterback back as well. So it's not like they were handicapped at all as far as West Georgia and their offensive play. So yeah, they're looking really good. And if they do go 12-0. They're going to have 3 ranked wins. Their FBS win is not just any FBS win because Army is, I think, like ranked. If Army was in the FCS, they'd be like ranked in the top 5 right now, according to Sagarin. So like that's just
Yeah.
not any FBS win. It's a quality one. And Tarleton's strength of schedule, like projected year end, is like in the 20s. It's actually one spot ahead of Montana's projected strength of schedule. It's like 3 or 4 spots behind NDSU's, and so it's not like this is a 12-0 FCS team with the number 88 strength of schedule. Like
Right.
they're going to be 26, 27, which is pretty respectable. So yeah, they're going to be in the mix for that top 2 seed.
All right, let's talk here of the game Friday night. The Grizz are going to play at Sac State, and I don't want to even get to what the Sac State president said. You can find it online. He's just fodder for Twitter to get people's attention. I'm done with him and that university. But how much, if Sac State is able to beat Montana, how much of that hurt the Grizz resume, knowing full well that Sac State hasn't panned out like anybody thought they were going to be any good?
Yeah, Sac State hasn't really impressed, especially they
No,
lost to Cal Poly. Then this last weekend they needed a comeback to beat Northern
Colorado.
Colorado, and I mean UNC is much more respectable now than what they were last year. But still, if you want to be a ranked opponent, you probably I mean they did get the win, and so at the end of the day they did get a win. Yeah, I mean they had 20,000 plus at their homecoming game this last weekend, and with it being a Friday night game on ESPN2, you would expect Sacramento State to draw another good crowd as well. They're holding like post-game concerts as well, so that they're kind of like making it
An
an
event.
attraction,
Yeah.
for that city, for people to come to their games. And yeah, we'll see. I still think you favor Montana here, but it's going to be a hostile environment. It'll be a tough place to get a win. And if the Grizz do lose, I mean, you probably put Sac State into the top 25 somewhere. Montana falls back, but how far do they fall
Right.
back? At that point, maybe you move the ahead, even though Montana
Has
has
the
the
head to head.
head-to-head. But
Yeah.
just based off of how teams are playing lately, at that point, you could probably move UND, ahead of the Grizz. So I don't know how far they'll still stay in the top 10. I'm sure the Grizz, if they were to lose, just because they still would have a nice resume. But yeah, I think Montana is going to go undefeated up until the brawl. Then we'll see what happens there. But if the Grizz do trip up, like the most likely time they would trip up would be this week, just because I think Sac State's going to put a lot into that game. And like you said, their president, like he's delivering a promo during halftime, like hyping it up. So it should be a really fun game to watch.
All right, the question in both the Dakotas is Chase Mason's ankle status. For those that missed the game against Murray State, he ran in a touchdown. He did not return after that, seemed gimping on an ankle there. His status is completely up in the air, Sam, for the game on Saturday, which is a huge deal. I mean, now granted, the Jacks won with their backup and Luke Marble at quarterback, but this is a monster question about what his availability is for Saturday night.
Yeah, it's definitely a difference maker whether he can play or not, and we probably won't know until we see him, warming up Saturday before the game, because there's no required injury reports or anything in the FCS, and so Coach Jackson doesn't. I'm sure he'll be a little coy about it and say like we're monitoring things and we're hopeful he'll play, like however he'll phrase it, but probably won't specify the injury either. We think it's probably an ankle, but we don't know for sure because we didn't really see when it happened. I feel like it probably happened earlier on in that drive. Potentially there was a fumble at one point and he recovered it, and it looked like his ankle kind of tweaked a little bit there. But we don't know if it's ankle. It could be a toe that got stepped on. It could be a knee. Like we really don't know. And the broadcast didn't show him on the sideline, or at least the Murray State's broadcast didn't. So I don't know if he had ice on or wrap on crutches or anything like that. But they did say that the broadcast said that Chase Mason was still in uniform, had his helmet on. He was walking around the sidelines, and the commentator, one of them said like to his eye, it seems like it's precautionary that like he could have gone back into that game if they really wanted him to. So I would guess that he's going to play. How full health he'll be, we'll see. But that is a difference maker because I don't know if I necessarily trust South Dakota State's run game this weekend. Especially against NDSU's interior defensive line. Now, Jackson Dutenheffer, I mean, first off, great to see him looked healthy, coming back to the game, but that's probably a pretty quick turnaround for him to play this weekend, but we'll see. But still don't necessarily trust South Dakota State's run game, and so they're going to have to throw the ball around. And if that's not going to be Chase Mason, like putting a redshirt freshman in there against NDSU might not be good news. So I would guess he's going to play for Chase Mason. I would guess he could have played this last week and came back in, but they held him out. And it's interesting too because before last year's Dakota Marker game, the talk was about Cam Miller.
Yes.
And he played through it the previous week, but didn't look super healthy doing it. And so it's kind of a full circle, I guess, a little bit.
Yep. I thought the same thing about that, seeing Chase's deal. All right, we mentioned that. Let's give us a couple other spotlight games we got going on. I don't think there's anything bigger than what's happening Saturday night in Brookings, but there's a couple other good ones going on this weekend.
Yeah, the Dakota Marker highlight game for sure. But the night before, Montana goes to Sacramento State. We touched on that one already, but that's an ESPN2 matchup. Super intriguing there. Another good one in the Valley, going back to the Valley, Illinois State goes to South Dakota. Should be a ranked matchup. Illinois State is kind of, I thought they looked pretty good against NDSU, but they don't really have any wins that jump off the page. And they recently just lost to Youngstown State, which is an upset. And, South Dakota keeps on winning. Ever since, losing to NDSU, but the Yotes, don't really have a great performance. Like Indiana State, Northern Iowa kind of eked out wins there. So this is a massive opportunity for the Yotes. Then to the UAC, Tarleton State goes to Eastern Kentucky. EKU just lost this last weekend, so some of their momentum has been zapped, but they play super well at home. I want to say that Eastern Kentucky has a pretty decent home winning streak right now, like 7-8 games. I might be wrong there. So it's a tough place to play. Another really good test for Tarleton State. It's not going to be a win that jumps off their playoff resume or anything like that because it won't be a ranked win. But I still think it's a good test for Eastern Kentucky, and I think style points matter. So if they continue to have blowout wins, that's going to stick out for the playoff committee.
Well, I'm glad you brought up USD before we go, because I've had Coyote fans asking me, and we were actually debating this during our interminable delay we had on Saturday. If they're 5-3, like they ran the table against Murray, Northern Iowa, Indiana State. I don't think they look great on any of those games. They still have UND coming to Vermilion, and then they have the Jackrabbits coming to Vermilion as well. I don't think they're a play. Kyle Emanuel said this, and I agree with him. He doesn't think they're a playoff team. What do you change your mind on them yet now that they're 5-3 and who they've beaten?
Not necessarily just yet. And I said even after the NDSU loss, which was ugly, I said the Yotes are probably going to win their next three,
Which they
which they
did.
have:
Yep.
Murray State, Indiana State, Northern Iowa. But the final four games are all against ranked opponents:
Yeah.
Illinois State, UND, South Dakota State, then Southern Illinois. And so we won't fully know, until these games start to happen. And USD probably needs to go 3-1 down the stretch, or they for sure have to go 3-1 down the stretch because then they would finish 8-4. Would probably be in then. But if they lose two more times, they were probably done
Yep.
so. And I don't know. I mean, they're probably not going to beat UND or South Dakota State. Like they get both at home, so they would have to spring an upset there. But they have to handle business this weekend. And they would have to handle business at Southern Illinois in the regular season finale. Then
That's
they would
tough.
have to split in that 2 week stretch hosting UND and South Dakota
Yeah.
State. They would have to split those.
I don't see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's defensively, I think they're playing well, but offensively, they're still they're going to try to win games 21-17, 21-14 because their offense just doesn't have it this year, and I don't know if that style is going to work against UND or South Dakota State.
Great stuff as always. Am I going to see you Saturday night? Are you making it to Brookings?
Yep,
Awesome.
I'll be there. So looking forward to that.
Great, man. Thanks for the time as always. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:35. You know it's a big deal if he's going to be there in person. He'll be there for the Bison and the Jacks. We'll wrap up our first hour. We come back. Jeff Kolpak around the bed. Big second hour. Back on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra right after this.